This is a story about the world, in which recently, VR games have become a sensation. Probably there is not a single person who has not entered the virtual world. Against this background, many companies have engaged in the development of completely different types of VR glasses, thereby creating an impossible competition. The range is huge, from cheap to expensive, for children or adults. All who have even the slightest desire will be able to find a suitable option for themselves. To create high-quality games, big companies started using artificial intelligence, which significantly improved graphics and animation, created dynamic scenarios, automatically tested and notified developers of errors. In short, it did a lot of useful work. Thanks to this technology, large companies were always one step ahead. It did not allow guys who are just starting to reach at least their level. Each player at the entrance to the game met a girl named Mary. This is an assistant, which is fully connected to artificial intelligence. The girl made very dressed up, with big eyes and beautiful hair, and she could answer almost any question. All this is done to entice the player. In the first stages of development, there were constantly system error, various bugs and so on, which did not like the players. One of the most common problems were textures, in which people fell through, and because of this could not pass certain missions. The developers had to solve a large number of problems, but with the help of Mary gradually removed all the errors. During the tests tested absolutely everything, even when the player becomes allegedly bad because of the intense heat, the girl will try her best to help. In the end, when everything was ready, the world-famous game was released, which is deservedly considered a masterpiece called MMORPG, a virtual reality game that supports online mode. This means that people from absolutely anywhere in the world can play together. When the game is fully completed, Mary will have to become the goddess of this world and rule it wisely. When the girl found out about it, she had a rather strange reaction. She wanted to say goodbye to the developer. In her opinion, they will no longer be able to communicate, because the world is too big. To keep track of everyone, you have to devote 100% of your time. She was right about something, of course, but this cop in the game had been thought out for a long time. The developer could contact the girl at any time if he wanted to, or she could contact him. Apparently, the artificial intelligence could not realize it yet. And if one day this world would come to an end, Mary asked the developer to be with her as he was right now. Such statements are very alarming, but it was decided to leave everything as it was. The developer, whose name was Oliver, was sitting at the interview with his team. He was so bored that sometimes he even managed to fall asleep. Today the company had a holiday, 5 years since the release of the game, but the mood was not festive at all. The head of the business department, whose name is William, said that the number of players is declining, and therefore the company's revenue is falling, so for the large-scale 6th update, the business department was added, which provides an in-game payment system. Oliver was clearly not happy about this news. He immediately expressed his displeasure. Who had allowed himself to make such an update without consultation? William didn't even know what to answer. It was all done for the prosperity of the company, and doesn't need to be discussed between everyone. The request to add the business department to the 6th update was more like a desperate attempt to raise the value of the stock so that all the investors who bought it could sell it in time for a good profit. The truth began to sting the eyes of many people in this room, and they began to resent it. But the guy was right. Instead of improving the service, the managers are trying to introduce incomprehensible schemes to earn money, which will lead to fraudulent actions to increase revenues, followed by a massive sale of shares of the company. Every year the game is getting worse. The balance of large investors is going downhill. Against this background, William had to cheat almost all the small companies that invested in the project, because there was nothing to. So Oliver said clearly, as long as he is working here, there can be no in-game payment system. He will not allow his game to be used to cheat other people. The project was created primarily to bring joy. Many people in the audience unfortunately did not support the guy. They continued to insist on their own. In this case, Oliver asked to be fired and went towards the exit. If the directors don't change their mind about this bandit update, the guy will never come back here again. The situation was very tense. The meeting had just started, and already there were some disagreements. No matter how Oliver is the main developer, you can't go completely against his opinion either, otherwise who will be engaged in the game? So it was decided to try to lure him to their side. The guy was the son of the chairman, so he could afford to express his opinion a little. He has a certain influence after all. 3 days have passed since the interview. A terrible incident happened in the game in Central Square, around 2:30 in the afternoon. One of the players was infected with something dangerous, and you ran to the square to find a medic. Something very scary was happening to him. His body literally began to dissolve in the air. People have never seen something like this before. There was a lot of noise around. Everyone was trying to find a doctor as soon as possible to save the guy. The girl who was the savior of the world was quickly found among the crowd. She immediately came to the rescue and applied a spell called Aura of Sensation. It brings all human indicators to normal. But unfortunately in this case, the man could not be saved. In front of everyone he turned into powder. People were just shocked. This is the first time in the game when someone lost their life, especially in this way. Almost immediately this incident was reported in the company. Apparently an incurable virus has begun to spread in the game. We need to declare the status of an epidemic. The main problem is that if a player loses his life due to this virus, his account is gone forever. Oliver said that he will check everything now, and asked not to panic before the time. He is not sure if it is something serious yet. The deleted accounts should be restored after checking. The second specialist, named James, had obvious problems not to panic. He had seen the players go crazy. He thought something very scary had happened. Oliver didn't listen to him and just continued to do his job, because there was no time to calm down someone who was already safe. The guy put on his goggles, selected the developer mode, and went into the virtual world to deal with what was happening. The first thing he did was to go to the very place where the terrible incident occurred, and urged people to stay calm. At the moment the whole team is working on determining the causes of the malfunction. All the problems will be eliminated as soon as possible. The people were more angry than scared that such a great campaign had allowed players to disappear. If only there was an opportunity, the guys would have torn the administrator on the spot for this oversight. Then followed the insults, and requests to return the money for the purchase in the game. Oliver warned everyone that an urgent check was organized to solve the problem. All game accounts will be restored after the check. Except for insults, no one said anything intelligent, so the developer threw out all the games without too many questions. Finally there was silence, and you can work normally. As it turned out, it was Oliver who introduced this epidemic status. But everything went wrong, burning whole cities, all over the game world, took the lives of 1,000 players. Now because of this their accounts are blocked, and no one knows when they will be able to return to the game. Everything turned out to be much more serious than the guy could have imagined. His seemingly harmless idea brought a lot of grief and negative reviews. Very soon about what happened will be talking about just everyone. The goals of this experiment were quite harmless. Oliver thus wanted to pay tribute to the classic games, especially the most famous games of 2,000 years, in which there was a massive breakdown that caused an epidemic. But even Mary at that moment realized that the idea is very bad. Why to conduct such a terrible experiment on the players? Unfortunately, the developer did not listen to her and did everything in his own way. In the year 2000, it became such a big deal that it was in the newspaper. But the problem is that this experiment turned into a huge bug, and now it can't be fixed, which is a shame, but nothing can be done. As things were clearly not going according to plan, Oliver asked Mary to delete all the data related to the event so that people could continue playing in peace. When Oliver tried to contact her, there was no answer, which made him even more suspicious. Then William appeared behind the guy's back and said that from now on, no one would answer Oliver because he had been fired. Today in the news, all people saw what happened in the game. One of the developers decided to obstruct the bosses, and developed his own plan to manage the company. When all this was realized, decided to urgently dismiss such an employee. He will also have to answer for the damage caused in court. I wonder if William came up with all this on his own or if he had help. According to him, he wouldn't have to worry about the company, because he would be a great director who would put everything back in place. The director was very happy that Oliver would finally be fired, because lately, he had been letting himself go too much, and didn't give him the opportunity to make normal decisions. The guy couldn't stand such insolence, and threw himself at the director with fists. Unfortunately, he could not hit him, because he called Mary, who in an instant came down from heaven, and stood on his defense. With her foot she pressed the boy's face to the earth. It was done with such great force that it was impossible to move. The expression on the girl's face made it clear that she didn't want to do it, but she had no choice. She was made to obey and follow the orders of those who were more important than her. Oliver isn't even a developer at this point, he's just an ordinary player with the same rights as everyone else. William started laughing out loud. Did the guy expect loyalty from an artificial intelligence? This situation made Oliver very angry. He would not let it go. To prove his case, it will be quite difficult, because while the guy was engaged in improving the game, the director in the real world has acquired serious connections, which he can use at any time. At the moment in the real world, Oliver is just a small screw of a big mechanism. Before you start fighting with the director, you need to find a good lawyer, who will help Oliver to realize in court, and not to fall in the mud. In case the guy loses this case, he will be waiting for big trouble. The developer's so ticked off. This whole situation that he promised to personally destroy this entire world, and make it so that no one else could play in it, much less make money from it. In the meantime, there were guards standing near the guy's capsule, ready to take him out of the office once and for all. After a while, Oliver was already in his apartment, and watched the news on TV, where they said that one of the employees of a huge game company had introduced a general bug in one of the company's products, for which he was fired. More than 70% of the company's annual revenues come from this very game in which the incident occurred. Since the guy is a professional developer, he has a whole VR room in his apartment. It was made so that the guy could absolutely always control the project. If the game eventually disappears, it will be the end of the whole company, because a large half of the source of income will disappear. In real life, Oliver is just a small cog in a big machine, that's true. But in the virtual world he is God, and when God is angry, it means that the world is about to end. When the guy moved to the virtual world, he met a new girl, who was also connected to the artificial intelligence. Her name is Olivia. Now she will replace Mary. The guy embedded it with company money, but registered it to his account, so it didn't go anywhere. Now it's gonna be a lot easier than you'd imagine. Olivia was worried about her boss, because he hadn't been online for 24 hours, and when she found out he'd been fired from his job, she almost fainted. This means that now the guy has no access to the company's server. The girl was not confused, asked Oliver not to get upset, and said that Napalm Group is not the only company in the world. There are many who still need such a strong specialist. To find a job is not a problem. Care and support is certainly nice, but at the moment these jobs do not interest Oliver. He has a different goal now. First, you need to turn on the firewall, then start using China as a geolocation. Each login should be done through a different account. If any data leaks out of the account, you need to get rid of it as soon as possible. After these instructions, Oliver confessed to his assistant that from now on he was going to start destroying the project called Wings Online. Then the guys went to the game world to start realizing everything that had been planned. Despite the remark, Olivia didn't regret that she took a little more time to choose a character, because like all girls she wants to look beautiful. After entering the game, the assistant felt as if in a real body. For an artificial intelligence it was a very unusual feeling. Unfortunately, the guy did not have time to share this joy, so he just went about his business, with the hope that the girl will calm down and quietly follow him. Because of the disconnection from the server, all the information regarding this game was erased. From what everything around the girl seemed to be new, probably because of this she felt a strong excitement inside. In general, adventures with the master was her dream, which finally came true. But so far the girl does not realize that this is not exactly what she dreamed of, but soon everything will fall into place. Olivia suggested traditional methods of development, for example, to raise your level a little, to then go hunting for squirrels. To start, you need to get the first quest and fulfill it. Such standard methods Oliver was not interested in. He stole one torch for himself, and one torch for Olivia. Traditionally in this game, the torch is used to illuminate dark areas, but it could be used to do something else that is not mentioned anywhere. For example, go into any building and set it on fire. Olivia was just in shock from what the Lord did. The guy asked her to join, but the girl would not have done such a thing. The building burned almost completely. For the crimes committed, Oliver received 10 points of shame. It is interesting why so little. Probably the point is that this village of newcomers, as people are just learning, there is no point in punishing them heavily. When an NPC came up to the guys and asked them to stop immediately, Oliver didn't think twice and just lit him on fire with a torch. Olivia screamed along with the NPC. She finally realized what was wrong. This was not an adventure but a crime. She had never been so disappointed in her life. She had too good a soul to do such a thing. Oliver received 100 points of shame for destroying NPCs, which was much better than 10 points for arson. By the way, you cannot worry about the NPC. He will soon be resurrected, but no one will give points for nothing. Oliver quickly realized that this action could be repeated over and over again, until the right number of points were collected. Olivia was crying hard, and sincerely wanted the guy to stop doing it. Then the locals came out, and tried to grab him for setting the village on fire. A whole crowd of residents armed with cold weapons ran towards Oliver. The guy refused a decent resistance, and was able to burn almost everyone who tried to prevent him. For each destroyed NPC, he also received 100 points. Only with the help of a single torch, the developer managed to set fire to the entire village, and destroy a large number of civilians. Now to Olivia came the full realization that the gentleman was not really joking. He really wants to destroy the game. After the scene ran armed to the teeth guards, they surrounded the criminals, and took them into custody. In the carriage for criminals, the guy decided to log in and check how many shame points he had managed to collect. Now he had 2,140 points, which would be more than enough for his initial goals. Olivia sat in the corner sobbing. She couldn't believe that the game had just started and they were already being taken to jail. In fact, there was no reason to worry. Newcomers are not sent to prison. They have the advantage of time to adapt. The only problem is the shame points. The more of them, the heavier the punishment. Meanwhile, the guys were brought to the abode of criminals, a city that is underground. Then the sweet couple were kicked out of the carriage and forced to sit there. The knights were very rude to the imprisoned criminals. The players who have gotten a lot of shame points are hunted down, put in grave danger by the guards, and harassed by the bounty hunters. The only place on the map where such players can exist is the underground city. A person who has a good understanding of the game knows that in this city you can get a secret job that is not available to other players. This can be used as an advantage on the strategy. The job of the villain must still look hard among the pile of garbage. Olivia decided to think logically. If Mr. wants to get this job, then it's a good job. Finally, she was not so categorically reacting to all the actions of the guy. In general, Oliver was a little bit offended, because he spent a lot of effort to develop an alternative way to earn money, but no one ever found out about it. Finally, the guys met the very NPC who can give a good job. He asked to come to him for a minute to talk. He stood in some dark passage, had a blue skin color, and tattoos on his forehead, also with the help of a hood, as much as possible tried to hide his appearance. The NPC was very surprised that the guys managed to get so many points of shame so quickly. It shows that people are professionals. After he introduced himself, his name is Dark Magician Harry. His task is to find servants for the Dark Lord. This couple will be ideal candidates. The first mission is called Initiation into the Villains. Being a newcomer player successfully scored a large number of points of shame. This means that he has a villainous talent, so the city wants to initiate you into the dark faith. The conditions of acceptance being a newcomer to score more than 1,000 points of shame. Now Olivia was extremely curious as to what would happen next, because that's exactly what her master was looking for. The girl was eager to see what the second mission would be like. When she looked at Oliver, she realized that something wasn't quite going according to plan. The guy took out his torch again, lit it, and tried to set the NPC on fire. He begged her not to do it, even started to bargain, and promised the guys a hidden class of the highest level. Olivia thought her master was crazy. Why does he keep destroying everyone? But not everything is as simple as it seems at first glance. The developer would never just destroy NPCs for no reason. Just a few seconds later, a portal began to form, from a parallel world. The Dark Knight leader named Tyrio came out of it. He couldn't believe that someone dared to destroy the abbot. Finally it happened. Someone as cruel as this couple appeared in this world. After the knight said to follow him, from that moment on there was a new mission called Devil Initiation. The dark forces were waiting for a true villain who could make the Dark Lord shudder. The Rio Maker wants to make these people the rumor of the Dark Lord, the reward for fulfillment, the assignment of the hidden class Dark Knight. So they did. The guys found themselves in the middle of some huge castle. In the center of the room there was an unusual carpet. Most likely it had the logo of the whole Dark Gang on it. Before becoming knights, you need to answer a couple of questions that Tyrio will ask. The developer immediately warned Olivia not to answer his questions, because she would have another job. She couldn't believe that her foreman was so greedy and wanted only him to get a good job. It wasn't really because of the foreman's greed. If the guys get the same job, the balance will be broken and they won't be able to work together properly. The first question was, who is the sole and absolute ruler of this world? The girl answered that she didn't know and was immediately kicked out. Oliver answered that the only ruler of this world was a Dark Lord named Raven. The second question is whether the player, being a supporter of the Ram, is ready to sacrifice himself for the dark forces. Of course he is. The third question is whether the player, being a Dark Knight, is ready to stand for the destruction of the followers of light. This is his goal. Now the last third question is whether the player is ready to sacrifice his body and soul in the name of the Dark Lord. Of course he is. After this answer, the guy will be given the title of the Dark Knight. From now on, Oliver can get stronger and stronger if he keeps increasing his shame points. But if he is caught by the guards, the points will drop to 0, and then you will have to develop all the skills from the beginning. But these risks give only more interest in this job, so you need to try as much as possible, and then very soon you can become a very strong player. In honor of the initiation into the Dark Knights, Oliver was given a small gift, namely a sword. This moment the guy did not really work out. It was necessary to make the gift weapon a little better, but still better so than empty-handed. And now he had to go spread the Dark Lord's name across the continent. Olivia was about to go get her job, but the guy asked her to wait not much longer. Friendly NPCs don't retaliate, but if you take their lives often, their friendship level drops. Since Tyrio is a dark force, and so is William, he won't attack back. I think he's got quite a few items and experience points. I'm drooling. Olivia had already understood everything, and was not against what was about to happen. So, for the sake of the bright future of the dark forces, Oliver would try to destroy Tyrio, and if he succeeded, he would get a lot of nice bonuses for it. Hunting monsters gives experience, and raises the level. As a reward for completing quests is given gold, which can be used to buy items. They can be collected or cooked. Now the main goal of Oliver is to create a squad to search for adventure, and go to the dungeon, because this is the point of MMORPG game. Standing in front of an NPC who isn't even capable of fighting back and waving a weapon in front of him for 9 hours is a bit much. But if the Lord has chosen this path, then Olivia just has to follow him. The girl took a torch in her hands and tried to set Tyrio on fire. Firstly, he is not afraid of fire, and secondly, the girl is not counted among the dark forces. If a person who is not initiated in dark magic will strike a blow, the monster will instantly fight back. It was just a hopeless situation. As the girl lost her life, she was offered to be reborn in the village. Oliver begged her not to do that because she would be fined, and he couldn't help her yet because if she stopped attacking, the Dark Knight's health would be restored. After another 3 hours, the guys still managed to defeat Tyrio. All this time the girl was lying on the floor and watched it. He really wanted Oliver to help as soon as possible. With the help of the revival stone, the developer brought back to life his assistant. This item is very rare. It is quite difficult to get, respectively. To do so constantly unfortunately will not work. Next time you need to be more careful. Olivia was very frightened, and would never want to experience something like this again. She was also upset that Oliver was not worried about her at all. So support the girl in the comments. He was more interested in what items fall out of Tyrio's body. The first thing that fell into his hands was a raven mask. It had a unique class but is only available for use from level 85. We will have to sell it, because up to level 85 is still very far away. The next item is a Basilisk Potion. It creates a poisonous cloud of 5 sectors within 15 seconds. It causes damage proportional to the maximum health value. It will definitely come in handy. Oliver knew roughly where to use this key, but he wasn't in a hurry to tell me. Olivia is tired of the fact that the gentleman is always playing alone. By the way, the poor artificial intelligence just had to lose his life, and then resurrected. In other words, the girl could not understand why she went together with Oliver on this journey. After the guys went to the village, Tyrio turned into his holographic copy and said an interesting phrase, exactly as he told you what it could mean. The most important thing is that this isn't just another bug. Because we already know that Oliver likes to write a game with a lot of bugs that can't even always be removed from the game. Olivia should have a job very soon, but before she does, there's something she needs to do. As we all know, the development of Wings Online started 5 years ago. Playing as a villain has more disadvantages than advantages. This means that all other people who are in the underground city are beggars, who are called psychopaths, even if they are not guilty of anything. It's just the way it is. If a person got here, then there was something for it. Who Oliver is about to meet is the overlord of all these psychopaths. Simply put, it's a growing cafe of psychopaths. Now the logical question arises, why do it? It's simple. To start a business, you need a lot of things, but the most important thing is money. There was a man walking around the area offering his services. He could take out bounty hunters for a fee. It's the kind of business you can't do without a roof. You can get through to the man in charge. Oliver brazenly approached him and said she wanted to talk to his boss. Now from the outside, Oliver looks like an ordinary newcomer and a poor man, so the man did not want to react much to my words, and called himself an ordinary player. Then Oliver said the words that will make every bandit working here think. It sounded like this. Tell Asaka this is the name of the chief. That anchovy brought a lot of orders. The man in a cold sweat ran off in an unknown direction. He probably wanted to report to his people as soon as possible what had just happened. Anchovy is the nickname Oliver used to create the game. You don't have to worry about the guy revealing his identity. These people don't reveal personal information. It's a rule. And Asaka couldn't have, because Oliver's met him before. Within 10 minutes, the guys were surrounded by Asak's men. They were at all the exits. The boss wanted to see them. For everyone's safety, they'd put bags over the visitors' heads so they wouldn't know the way to Asak. The main thing is to stay calm, and everything will be fine. The guys were led through the dungeons, even handcuffed. When they arrived at the place, they were thrown into an office, bags removed. Asaka was very surprised, because in front of him sat obviously not the anchovy. He knows who they are, and what they came with. Not much of a backstory on how Oliver met him. It was an ordinary weekday. After a day of work, the guy took a cup of coffee and was going to go home. When suddenly, right at the exit of his office, he was met by Asaka. It wasn't the first time they'd met. Oliver had already threatened to report him for constant harassment, and it was getting to an abnormal level. Since the developer was always busy, there was no other way to meet with him, so it was a last resort. If not after work, then no other way. The thing was, Asaka had some very serious accusations hanging over him in the game, and he was furiously begging the guy to take them off him every time. He wanted one chance. He promised to make it up to him and always play fair. But when Oliver didn't say anything, the man just started sobbing at his feet. This guy's case was decided according to company policy, so Oliver alone couldn't have any influence on it. and even if he could, he didn't have the slightest desire to pursue it. Despite such a rude answer, Asaki didn't give up and kept begging the guy to consider his case again. With this story, Oliver proved that he was really the same anchovy, just on a different account. Asaki slammed his hands on the table, asked him to stop retelling the story and ordered his subordinates to leave the office. The conversation that was about to take place was definitely not for their ears. When the room was vacated, Asaki was a little more friendly. Of course, he didn't recognize the guy right away. On this account, he looked more like a regular loser who couldn't even develop in the game. I wonder what brings such a great game developer to this humble abode. You don't have to be so over the top. It's been like 2 days now. The guy isn't a developer because he was fired. And yes, from now on, the anchovy name should be forgotten once and for all. The new name is Oliver. I wonder why it's that name and not any other. It must mean something. Most likely this gentleman wants to be the final boss of this world. Oliver suggested not to guess, but to get straight to the point. He wanted to share some valuable information with Asaki, and for this he would lend not much gold. The information was really valuable. Oliver said that very soon the game will introduce a new payment system, and an item that improves the process of leveling up. The developer also offered to buy more improvement stones that would then sell them for a lot more expensive, so you cannot make a lot of money. In a month, when the 6th update is released, the level limit will be raised and new equipment will appear, but all the improvement stones will absolutely disappear from the sold when the new monetary unit appears. You can buy them only from them who have them on hand. After the release of the update, stones will almost not remain, but in the near future this problem will be solved, so the main thing here is to sell in time. In any case, Asaki is focused on profit, so he will sell everything exactly on time. But there is another question: such an innovation will not interfere with the gameplay or the game as a whole. It's not clear yet how much of an impact it can have, because this is just the beginning, and the future will introduce much worse items that people will be able to buy with money and do what they want. William is willing to do anything to make money. Asaki gave him 1,000,000 coins for such valuable information, and he didn't even ask him to return them. Oliver thanked him for it, of course, but said he would return it soon. Asaki said that Oliver's face looked very pleased, but what did he mean by that? In his opinion, the developer is something like them. The guy is not afraid to try everything to achieve his goal. He has the look of a real villain. Interesting, and how to regard it as a compliment or not, but in any case it sounded interesting. Or maybe he just doesn't take offense anymore, and is just being a buddy. This trial with him in his life was momentous. At the time his account was temporarily blocked, a kind of warning for players who misbehave. The case would have been closed in any case. Then he did not do anything for which you could give him a permanent block. After 15 hours of non-stop play, the guy is noticeably tired. It would be good to rest. But first he needs to open the trading window and buy up to the limit of iron ore. It is valued at about 5 gold pieces. Why you need so much iron ore, the guy will explain to me much later, because he is too tired. While Oliver is not there, he asked his assistant to reach level 10. This is necessary so that the girl could get a permanent job. All players who have a level below the 10th have to climb on all sorts of part-time jobs and thus survive. Well, now Olivia was left all alone. At first she was a little sad, but then she realized that finally she could play as she wanted and enjoy the game. First of all, she went to the market and started buying absolutely all the iron ore for 5 gold pieces. After that she started doing what she wanted so badly: hunting bats, hunting spiders and so on. Apparently Olivia liked to hunt too much. Then she ran into a problem, namely not having enough room in her inventory. You have to make room to put something new in there. When the girl opened her inventory, she saw that there collected a lot of necessary and unnecessary. How to deal with it all now? The first thing she decided to do was to make herself clothes from spider silk. Thanks to this, the girl increased the level of her knitting skill. She was so excited to be doing all this. It was exactly what she had been dreaming of for so long. Now it was time to start cooking. Olivia had prepared countless hot dishes that she would probably just store away because there was no one here to eat them. Now we have to think of something else to do, like fishing. The girl caught just a huge amount of fish, increased her skills to the sky, and then cooked it. Olivia liked to play. Without much effort, with great pleasure, the girl has already reached the 12th level. But the whole day has already passed. Why the gentleman still hasn't come back, whether he sleeps for so long. Meanwhile, the newcomer who is fishing is noticed by two local natives. They always, when they see a player weaker than themselves, try to hurt him somehow, and then beat him up. They both jumped up, drew their knives, and were ready to strike the poor little girl, who was just catching fish. Olivia heard someone flying in her direction, turned her head and saw the whole picture. To say the least, she was very scared. Meanwhile, it was already clear outside, and Oliver was still asleep. With great difficulty, his friends managed to wake him up with constant calls on his phone, or rather there were 52 calls, and 32 more messages. If it wasn't for his friends, the guy would have probably slept for the second day for sure. We should at least come up with an excuse for where he's been all this time. This evening, the guys gathered at their favorite place to have dinner together, as they used to do it all the time when they worked together. Oliver told his friends that he was planning to go on a trip soon. Because he had been working for 15 years and had never seen the world, he needed to go somewhere very far away, to completely change his surroundings. His friends supported him and said it was a great idea. Starting in high school, these people developed wings online together. Oliver's unusual style of play could be a problem. Once the guy falls under suspicion, everyone will know that he is on vacation, and this is the best alibi. Now it's time to discuss where it is better to go on vacation. The first thing that comes to mind is India, South America, or Bali. In general, there is a lot to choose from. The main thing is desire. Judging by the girl's face, she obviously did not believe that she really has a good instinct. The friend in turn just supported the guy and wished him a good vacation. But what to do then after the vacation, how to earn money, if Oliver would not be taken back in the company? So far, the guy didn't even think about it and didn't want to. During the vacation, his head should be empty and not think about anything. So far, for the next 10 years, he could not worry about money. In the end, the girl said that she was very jealous and would also like to rest. She can't remember the last time she slept normally. The guy smiled and suggested that she quit. Most likely only in this case she would have a decent vacation. Since he had worked there for 15 years, he knows all the managers just fine. These people will never do anything that will cause them even the slightest loss. Apparently she was really thinking about it. You can see from her face how much she's tired of it all. It also turns out that the girl has long wanted to end it all. So sad she can be seen very rarely. But today is probably the day. Then there was a suggestion for everyone to leave the company and start over. To start their own little company, like they dreamed of in high school, to develop some kind of game, but for now it was just a suggestion, not a call to action. Oliver realized that the guys had managed to get drunk, because in their right mind such a suggestion couldn't be made. Considering that the girl was supporting her sick mother and her brother's education, and the guy had a pregnant wife, you couldn't just quit your job and leave everything to fate. For now, we need to forget about that idea and drink some more alcohol. One day the guys will create their own company and work together on games, but that's not possible right now. Today Oliver's main task is to get revenge on the company from the destruction of the game he created and become a real villain. I wonder how Olivia is doing. When she was attacked, she was able to fend off two bandits who wanted her resources so badly. To put it mildly, they were shocked. Usually if a newcomer is found in an underground city, they take his life literally in one, maximum 2 blows, but in this case, they could not even wound. Olivia was very friendly, apologized and asked why it was that 2 huge men had suddenly decided to attack her as well. Now they were standing there discussing how this little girl had managed to block their attack. There must have been some kind of mistake, so we need to try again. She couldn't understand why the guys wouldn't calm down and keep attacking her. It seemed that if they tried to do it again, Olivia would attack them herself. Finally, the men realized that it was not a bug, and the girl did reflect their attacks without much effort, but how could it be possible? Even with the blocking should not be much damage, at least a little bit of the girl had to suffer, but in this case, it was as if she was not vulnerable. Then the guys took a closer look, and realized that it was possible with a weapon like Olivia's. In her hands was the only weapon in the game with 100% damage reduction. It can be bought in the village shop. For beginners, it is called a dagger beginner. But this is somehow not fair. The player just enters the game and with minimal skills to see the battle, can become invulnerable to players of any level. In general, this dagger has been in the game for a long time. It is just that few people use it because it does too little damage, but as a defense in the beginning it has no substitute. In general, one of two things: either this girl is a PvP genius or a cheater. In this game, the guys have never met cheaters before, so they decided to check for themselves whether the girl plays fair or not. Now they will take turns using their skills and watch Olivia block them. He pulled out his crossbow and rained arrows down on the girl. At first Olivia was doing a great job and shot down all the arrows that could potentially hit her. After seeing that, the guys were sure that the girl was not playing fair, as it was possible to shoot down arrows with one blade that were flying at a great speed. In the end, the blade broke because of its weak strength, and now there was nothing to defend with, and one of the arrows hit the girl. If it had been a little stronger, Olivia would have survived the rain of arrows completely. The guys were curious to see if she was probably using cheats, or just a noob with good reflexes. Either way, they should report the situation to the developers and have them double-check her account. A half-drunk Oliver suddenly arrives on the scene, outraged that the fight was not equal 2-on-1. It's not fair. Oliver felt terrible at the moment. If he gets drunk again, we can call him a dirty dog. The thugs asked who he was. The guy said he was a friend of this little girl. If you want to take another man's life, be prepared to take it yourself. Everyone who does this kind of thing should know this rule. The bandits had already managed to believe that they were about to be destroyed, but in reality it didn't happen. Because of the big difference in level, Oliver couldn't do any damage to them. This is definitely a big problem. When they felt the power, they immediately attacked back. Since Oliver knows how to fight, he managed to dodge the first attack. The guy had no choice but to spend such a useful item on these freaks. Called Basilisk Potion, it's the only way to damage them. So not thinking long, the guy threw it right at them. The bandits immediately realized that it was very dangerous, then tried to run out of it. The mistake was that they were running together. Oliver noticed which way they were running and threw another potion. Now the bandits decided to try and scatter, but it was too late. Oliver climbed up to the hill, lit a torch, and threw it down. This fog has the properties of Gaza. It is only necessary to read it, and it will disappear. But before that there will be a big flash of fire, which will not leave the slightest chance to those who were in the fog. By some miracle the bandits there still managed to survive. One of them immediately drank a potion to restore his health, while the other could do nothing because he was stunned. If the player loses more than 70% of his health, he falls into a stunned state for 5 seconds. If he is attacked before he recovers, he is finished. Still, high-level players are no joke. They actually managed to survive the fire. One bandit became on the defensive. The second, he applied the skilled defensive stance. It allows him to take attacks on himself instead of the immobilized member of the group and increase the strength of the defense. This didn't scare Oliver one bit, because he was no longer a normal player like the others. Now he decided to use his dark aura to break through the defenses that the bandits had put up. And he succeeds. Bandit takes damage he's never taken before. He was 100% sure up until this point that Oliver would never be able to break through his defenses under any circumstances. This blow should be clearly distinguishable from the previous one. The skill that was used shrouds the weapon in dark ominous flames, inflicts 100% additional damage. As well as this damage has the property to break through the defensive force. The price of using this skill is 1% of the maximum health. Use 1 unit of health every second is certainly risky, but taking into account the difference in levels, there is only this way. You'll have to do your best and finish them off as soon as possible. The second smart man now advised to completely remove the defensive position and just take the fight. In his opinion, such a motome would be much more effective now. The bandit was ready to finish just now, because he had adopted his strongest skill, called Iron Strike. But apparently not today. Oliver easily blocked it, and did not get absolutely no injuries. In this he was helped by the dagger rookie, which absorbed all the damage to himself. As it turned out, the time of battle cannot change weapons to regular players, and Oliver could do it. This action caused a storm of negative emotions among the bandits. In general, purely theoretically it is possible to do this, but the guys first saw it during the battle. During the replacement, even a few missed seconds can be punished when the weapon falls to the ground. In such a short moment, the outcome of the battle can change significantly. So many people have already forgotten about the existence of this technique and stopped using it. But Oliver used it with such dexterity, as if he had been doing it all his life, despite his very low level. Who he was. After seeing that, the guys tried to leave the battlefield. They were scared as much as they had ever been scared before. This guy is not just some rookie, but most likely a high-level pro. Ranker, this statement isn't really about Oliver. He's positioning himself as a living fossil. Gathering all the strength in a fist, the guy ran into the fight. His first target was the type who destroyed his little assistant with his pathetic arrow. For this he had to answer. He wanted to leave the bandit who was in the room, but because of the great speed of running, he could not even react. Oliver just ran past him straight to his target. There were only seconds left before the end of the stun. He had to make sure he had time to strike the last blow. At the last moment, Oliver managed to stick his sword right into him. The bandit had the common sense idea that he should take a break from the game. Meanwhile, the second bandit was running for his life. He tried to hide and get out of the game. To completely exit the game, you have to wait for 5 seconds for the system to completely shut down. Literally in 2 seconds, Oliver appeared above the bandit's head with a sword in his hands. He was just in time as always, at the very last second, inserting his sword into the evil player's body. Meanwhile, Olivia's body was floating in the lake where the girl was fishing. She sincerely believed and hoped that the Lord had not forgotten about her. Oliver comes to her and uses another resurrection stone. It's too risky a job. Olivia is starting to lose her mind. She doesn't want to go through all this anymore. For the guy being late, he sincerely apologized. After these words, the girl blossomed and said that she was not used to being reborn. In general, she was ready to go into battle again. Now on Oliver's account, 4,380 points of shame. In fact, it's kind of small. The guys were really strong, could not give at least a few more points. If in a battle of dark side users one destroys the other, half of the points of shame goes to the winner. But Oliver only got 2,000 points. The guy also got the second level of the Dark Knight, but again it was not enough. There is still a lot to do. The developer warned Olivia that her reaction speed can be mistaken for cheating, so in the future it is necessary to make not big delays during the use of combat techniques. Roughly speaking, to show a little humanity. Because if you continue to do everything very quickly like a robot, the administration will quickly find and block the player. For some reason, Olivia was stressed that she didn't need to show much humanity, probably because she didn't know how. There wasn't time to talk too much. Now the guys were off to make a new class for the girl. She wasn't crazy happy when she found out about it. The guys came to some temple and called the master. Since to use the skills of the Dark Knight, one way or another will have to spend a certain amount of health. You will need to constantly monitor its indicators. For example, in critical moments to drink a potion to restore health, or just heal. Therefore, in order to do all this, the girl must become a priestess, and at the same time replenish the red liquid of the Lord. In short, Olivia would now be a healer on the run, which was sorely lacking. There was no time to chat, so Oliver picked her up and carried her behind the new class. Olivia also dreamed of owning the hidden class that her master had promised her, but apparently it was too early. In the end, everything went well. The girl got a new class called Priestess. When Oliver saw her, he almost fell down laughing. It suited her well, being a priestess was her calling. Moreover, this class is very valuable. As soon as you mention raiding, there is a whole line of priestesses. So the new class had arrived, so it was time to go to the next target. Olivia extremely hoped that the Lord is not going to destroy NPCs again. This time the mission of the guys to reach the 90th level, it is the highest level in the game, to do it in just 1 month. Usually for players who play almost constantly it takes more than half a year. How is it possible to do it so quickly? In a month's time, the most tempting update in the history of the game will begin, a new continent will be opened, the latest models of equipment will appear, and also the 100th level will be considered the highest level. The maximum level must be reached before anyone else, and when the update comes, Oliver will monopolize everything on the new mainland. Meanwhile, the guys went to the underground snake lair. The difficulty level of the passage is normal, provides this place as many as 5 missions. Recommended level for the passage of the 50th. Olivia started to get very worried. She feels like their level is too small to go straight to this place. Oliver asked to be without panic, because he has everything thought out. As suddenly a huge snake came out of the darkness at the guys and started hissing hard. He pushed the girl aside so that she wouldn't get hit by the snake. Olivia's dark aura was activated and Olivia was ordered to do the healing and went into battle. His main task was to do everything as well and quickly as possible, only if Olivia didn't fail. The snake was very huge, not an easy battle ahead. But apparently the guy wants to use certain tricks that no one knows about, because too boldly he ran into battle. Olivia immediately got to work and gave herself a communication, protect the master at all costs. The guy struck a light blow first, but he was immediately followed by an answering blow with his tail. Because of it, Oliver flew away and hit his back against the wall. Olivia started to heal him at once. Because his health level had dropped almost to the critical zone, the girl was doing it very qualitatively. Literally just now Oliver had been unconscious, and already he was ready to go on the attack again. The work between them was very coherent. Now the master was convinced for sure, he could trust his little girl completely. After a while the girl made it so that on the guy now comes an eternal stream of health. As soon as at least 1 unit of health is removed, then it is immediately restored. It is just what is needed. Then the boy strikes the snake one more hard blow. He was not stupid at all, because of the fact that the girl began too much and clearly the owner of the snake noticed it and took a course on her. The monster moved with incredible speed. What to do in such a situation? Whether the girl will be destroyed again and she will no longer be able to treat her master. The serpent, with its mouth open, froze over the girl for a moment, and then fell on her, its mouth slamming shut. Oliver was shocked, to say the least. After all, if the girl could not be saved, then she would have to start all over again, and this is a very long way. The cost of the dark aura is a maximum of 1% health per second. Without healing, it's almost impossible to last, with only a little over a minute to destroy it. If Oliver doesn't hold out, he won't be punished with points. That can't be allowed. So the guy took his sword firmly in his hands and went into battle. He had no right to make a mistake. The serpent tried to trick and suddenly struck with its tail, but the guy dodged it in time. All these styles of attack that the monster uses Oliver himself invented. You just need to think a little, and there will be an answer how to get around it all even without additional help. Tail strike, jump up, body girth. At the very last moment jump out of the ring so that the monster did not see it. And lastly, it is a bite with a poisonous fang is exactly the attack that the guy needs. After it the snake becomes maximally vulnerable. The main thing is to jump out from under the snake in time, take your sword firmly in your hands, and stick it right into the back of your head, the deeper the better. This is the only chance you have to put all your energy into. Everything seemed to be done properly. Without a single mistake, the blow was really strong, but apparently not enough. The serpent started to hold on hard and threw the guy out of his head. He just needs help, otherwise he will lose his life right now, and that can't be allowed. We need to hit him in the same spot at least one more time, and then everything will definitely work out. Even when Oliver was just falling down, he didn't lose hope for a positive outcome. His faith was in him to the last. Suddenly his health begins to replenish. Turns out Olivia was still alive. She was right inside the snake, and when she got the chance she immediately started treating the guys. It was more timely than ever. Everything worked out for the best. It's even hard to believe, a man sitting inside a huge snake and still trying to somehow help his partner. The guy waited for that poisonous blow, jumped on the snake's head and reinserted his sword, after which the snake was defeated. Oliver immediately ran to cut it open so that he could get his precious assistant out as soon as possible. Olivia was unharmed and unscathed, a slight scare to say the least. Olivia was not lying when she said she could be trusted. The first thing she did when she opened her eyes was to replenish her master's health, as there were few of her kind left in the world. Thanks to killing just one snake, Oliver had risen 5 levels at once, an incredible result. This is due to the fact that the difference in levels was very significant. No reasonable person would go to fight with a snake, at such a level as Oliver was, unless he knows some secret techniques. Oliver didn't come here for a reward, but what they gave him was just junk. Snake meat, 30 coins, and snake scales, 6 pieces, even looks ridiculous. They could have done better not to give anything out. Next time it would be better to go to the dungeon, where you can get normal items. In general, in this location was originally supposed to be a dungeon lizard man. Perhaps because it is a game, users do not quite like monsters that look like people. That's why the monsters here look exclusively like monsters, and people like people is the concept. This is the principle on which the game was developed. In the past, the gizzard men had been a separate race that used to use traps, so there were traces of their creations. Oliver found the most inconspicuous lever right in the middle of the wall, turning which the ground collapses and the thorns await the victim below. It is done very well, of course. An ordinary person would never guess that you can lose your life here. Olivia was delighted with what she saw, because if you fall there, the user will be deprived of life. That's enough talk for now. It was time for Olivia to go do her job, which she didn't even know about yet. Her job is to lure monsters here. Oliver asked her to bring 10 of them. Poor frightened Olivia went on a search. When she saw the first snake she almost fainted from fear. She wanted to get back to her master. He didn't want to see her here until the girl had brought as many as 10 souls. She had to pull herself together, put in maximum effort, and quietly find 9 more of them. But while with this was a problem, every unnecessary movement of the monster the girl reacted very sharply and tried to run away. In the end, the girl still managed to collect the right amount of snakes. All of them wanted to eat her, so she had to run as fast as possible. Oliver at this point was already on full alert. The main thing is not to stop and run faster. The girl ran as fast as she could because she was tired of losing her life. She couldn't let it happen again. As soon as she crossed the safe line, Oliver opened the trap and a whole bunch of snakes fell in. After successfully completed the mission, the girl also got the 30th level. This is a great result, and the trailer could already go outside and change the girl's class. But Oliver decided to still destroy the boss. It would be a pity to leave here one such a strong monster. If you destroy it, you can get a lot of useful things. Despite the fact that the level of the guys has risen significantly, the boss of the 50th level is really too much. In the usual battle, he definitely cannot overcome. This time we'll have to use only traps, otherwise no one can survive. Olivia's task this time is to open the door and go not much inside, and Oliver will activate the trap right here. When Olivia opened the doors and went inside, she didn't see anything at first. It was too dark, and then at one point torches were lit everywhere. The boss was starting to wake up, and N was obviously very pleased when he saw that someone had come to see him. A little later, Oliver told the girl that she might be a little petrified, but it was nothing to be afraid of. The girl didn't understand what he meant at first, but it made her very scared. The monster was very huge, in dark colors, and with bright red eyes. The look of it was extremely intimidating. After he had looked at the girl, he shouted, and from that powerful sound, Olivia was petrified for a while. The little girl was scared out of her wits. She wanted her master to help her as soon as possible. Oliver said not to worry, because he would trap the monster before it wanted to attack the girl. When the snake started to move towards the little girl, Oliver began to watch very carefully, so that he could press the button in time. In the moment, Olivia probably lost all hope that she could survive, because she was only meters away from the monster, but everything was under control. She just had to be patient. When everything was ready, the guy just presses the button that was neatly hidden in the wall, and something very sharp comes out of the ground and hurts the snake so badly that he lost his life right on the spot. Basically, as Oliver said, it was nothing special, but it would be a lot of experience points. But something unpleasant happened. A stone fell on the girl, who couldn't move, and broke her into small pieces. In general, the dungeon was completely cleaned up. After this incident, Oliver realized why in all the movies artificial intelligence is always rebelling, because it always takes on all the troubles. The physics engine is too good, and at one point, it can't take that kind of abuse. That's the problem. Maybe it's time to change that long-promised class after all. Apparently, she's got a lot of resentment, so she needs to be pampered. The guy apologized to her and told her he was heading to the temple, then told her to come too. At this moment, there was no time at all to comfort her, needing to work at a fast pace. Because it's not long before the renewal. The lad was greeted at the temple by the Rio. He was insanely happy that Oliver had reached level 30 so quickly. It was an improvement with unimaginable speed.